Hey, what is going on, guys? Today we're going to be taking a look at a couple of products here from Gunprimer. Now, even though Gunprimer is a Korean-based company over here in my neck of the woods, these were sent to me from USA Gundam Store. So if you guys want to check out this stuff or anything else there on the USA Gundam Store site, the link is down below, and you can save 10% off everything there using my code, ZakuAurelius10. So that's down there in the video description below as well. So make sure you use that if you want to check this stuff or anything else out there on the site. So these couple of products we're going to be taking a look at here is the Razer, which is basically just a glass file system for removing nubs on your kits, and then this over here is the joint guard for plastic models, which is basically for tightening joints on your kits. So if you have a limb or something anywhere where it's particularly loose, you can use these to tighten them up. So we'll go ahead and talk about these, and I want to basically address these in 3 different points. So number 1, are these tools going to save you money? Number 2, are these tools going to save you any time? And number 3, are they going to give you better quality results compared to other tools or techniques? So we'll first just kind of go ahead and I'll show you guys what you got here, and then we'll kind of address those 3 points in kind. So for the Razer here, this is kind of like the main show. It's just in this black box, which is quite heavy and thick. And as you can see, you just have the Razer logo there on the front and the Gunprimer logo down here. You have this little pull tab, this slides out. And then inside here, we have a paper, which is going to contain our instructions on it. Think, make, and enjoy together. And then just the same message here in Korean as well. 함께 줄이고 함께 생각하고 함께 만들어 갑니다. Yeah, that's not really anything. And then just new slogan and new product, Razer tempered glass file series Gunprimer. Okay, anyway, so let's get this opened up. And I think earlier versions of this had this all in Korean, but if you get this now, I believe it should all be in English for you guys. So it just gives you some simple instructions of how to use this. There's basically 3 parts in here. You have the Razer, the balancer, and the recover. So this instruction kind of booklet here will show you what to do with the Razer. Basically, this is what you're going to use. This is the glass file that you're going to use to remove the nubs. The balancer is basically what you can use as basically a buffer to then just kind of get some of the shine back on your parts or keep it matte if you wanted to. And then the recover is just to kind of add more shine to it if you really want that really shiny look. So these are kind of especially useful tools, I feel like, for if you're not planning on painting. If you don't paint your kits, you just like to build them, you just like to get a nice build just straight out of the box, build it up and just have it look good, then you're probably the kind of person who would be most interested in these products. I think if you're interested in painting, you're not really too worried about using this recover tool and things like that for, making the plastic look really good before you're just about to paint it anyway. But the other cool thing that you can do with this here, though, it's kind of nothing, but what you can do with this case after you take all this stuff out is then you can just use the case as just like a little storage box for your tools and stuff. And you have like this nice hard box there for keeping some tools and stuff in. So I mean, that's kind of nice, something at least you can do with that. If it's gonna come in this like high quality, surely expensive box, at least it's something that you can use and not something that you just have to throw away. So all right, let's take a look here at the Razer. So it's just this glass file here. This is the rough side that you use against your parts, and the balancer here, if we can get this out. Again, this is basically like a buffing pad, so it's kind of spongy material here, and the top and bottom are different. They have a different, I guess, grit on them. So according to the manual here, like if you use the lower side of the balancer, you'll get a matte surface. If you use the lower side plus the recover tool, which is that one there, then you'll get a semi-gloss surface if you use the lower side and the upper side, and then you'll get a glossy surface. So you can use the 2 sides of that also in combination here with the recover tool. It looks like we get 2 of these in the box, when it just basically just feels like just a cutout strip of denim, essentially. And what I know, then I've used this at times before when I've needed to, which has not really been very often, but when you need like a really super fine, just like buffing thing as well too, I know just like regular normal A4 paper also just works for that. So I'm wondering how this will compare to basically just using a piece of paper or even your t-shirt. T-shirt's not going to be quite as gritty as this. This being denim is obviously a little bit more rough than most t-shirt, unless you're wearing like some really kind of burlappy kind of t-shirt. But at times when I've just wanted to just give a quick buff to a part, I've just used my t-shirt and it also kind of worked well. So I want to try these out here on a kit. So I'm currently working on the Tri-Age Magnum, so I just pulled a couple of parts here from this that I figure would be good ones to try out. So we're going to start with the Razer, and I also want to try this out on clear parts too, because something that people are often wondering about, how to remove nub marks safely on clear parts, so we'll try that out also. But let's just go ahead and try this out here. I guess what I'll do first is just get a little bit closer cut here with my nippers. So let me see. And one thing that I do also want to test with this too is how much is going to damage the part if you over sand with this, kind of over file, because that's one thing. For removing nubs, I never use like a regular file, like a metal file, because I find it's too easy to damage the part if you get kind of a little bit not careful, a little bit overzealous with it. So I'm wondering how much you're going to have kind of the same effect with this as well. There you go. I think that's basically gone up. You can still see a little bit of the remnants of that, which is that little bit of whiteness that a lot of people will complain about seeing on your kits. And then as you can see on the file, I mean, I don't know how this file is going to hold up over time. I imagine it would last pretty long before it starts to get worn down. But I'll have to try that out. I'll use it for a while and let you guys know about that later. But I mean, the nub is gone. It feels pretty smooth, so I mean, that looks good, and everything looks pretty smooth like that. I just do want to also hit this with the lower side. So it's looking very shiny now, and if you didn't want it to look very shiny, according to the manual, you can use the balancer to get a matte surface by using the lower side of the balancer here. So let's just also give this a try. And I will also say too that I just don't like using really spongy buffs like this, because it's just kind of uncomfortable for me, so I don't really like these anyway, but I'll try my best to at least just demonstrate this here for you guys. And the problem with this particular part too is that it's got a little bit of a sink in the plastic, so I feel like these are not super strong, so if you really need to remove a lot of plastic, these aren't really going to be good for that. And for getting at sinks in the plastic, you kind of need to remove a little bit more of the plastic, and then I think you're going to be at it for a while using a tool like this in order to get that super smooth. But you can see it is looking a little bit more matte than it was before, and I could keep at this for a while. I don't know how long it's going to take before it's really starting to look really super matte, but it's still not like that much of a matte finish. It's still got a little bit of a shine to it, I gotta say. Let's try it again here over on this side. This may be a larger surface, easier for you guys to see the effect of that. So just give this a go here, and I tend to kind of swap back and forth, rotating this back and forth, because I feel like once you get this kind of gunked up with some plastic dust in there, it's not really working as well. So I'll just kind of switch back and forth the sides, rotate it every few seconds a little bit. And there you go. I mean, it is very surprisingly smooth, so I will give it that. It does feel very smooth. That's good. Let's go ahead and just buff that and see if we can get this looking a little bit more matte finish. This part as well though too, just kind of has some sinks in it where you're just gonna be a little bit difficult to get that to look really super flat. But there you go. I mean, it's all right. You can still see a little bit of miscoloration from that, but it does feel really smooth. So if you're gonna be painting it, I mean, I think you'll be good. If you want to just build this just straight out of the box and have it looking good, there's kind of no really good way to avoid miscoloration from nubs like that, really. It depends on what color the plastic is. Obviously on like a white part, you're not really going to need to worry about that too much because it's almost impossible to see, but on colored parts, sometimes you'll just have some miscoloration that you just can't really do a whole lot with. Now, let's also try out the recover tool a little bit and just kind of see what that does to it. I'm not really sure if it's going to do a whole lot much of anything really at this point. I guess it should ideally shine that up a little bit, but let's see. It is definitely making it look like very shiny plastic, so if you did want your kit to look really high glossy, it does seem like this is going to be a good tool set for you. As you can see, it is looking very glossy on there. So, and just for me personally, most of the time when I'm removing nubs on kits like this, especially just getting ready to just do reviews or whatever, I'm mostly just using a knife to remove the nubs. And I know the fact that I cut towards myself freaks a lot of you guys out. I'm sorry, it's just what I'm comfortable with. I don't necessarily recommend it because yes, it is the more dangerous way to go out removing nubs, but I'm used to it at this point that I can do it without stabbing myself, but just be careful with how you cut. So just with the knife, there's what I would typically get on just this stage of the process. And as you can see, it's not quite as nice and shiny as that, definitely. So, I mean, it's plus points to the Gunprimer tool there for looking more shiny. If I really wanted, I would give this a little bit of a sanding too as well. This is just a very old beat up. It was originally 600 grit filing or just a sanding stick here, but it's a little bit worn out now, but I can give this just a little bit of a sand here. You guys can see the difference. And even though this sanding stick is pretty worn out, it is going to be still better at getting at those sinks in the plastic, I would say. So that's going to be better with a sanding stick, with just a normal sanding stick. But there you go, cleaned up. It's definitely going to have much more of a matte finish than that, even though I buffed this with the recover tool, of course. But let me just go ahead and buff this with my t-shirt. There you go. After giving it a little wipe with the t-shirt, honestly, it's Pretty nice matte finish there with just the knife, a little bit of sanding stick, and just a t-shirt, but you guys can get the idea. Like I said, I wanted to test how much this is going to damage your part if you're getting like kind of wrong, because this is a flat file, and especially on a rounded surface. This is not the best example of a rounded surface, but just to test it out, like if you were to accidentally let this slip and it kind of like scratches, I'm intentionally going over this part in the very wrong way, and it's not really doing a whole lot of damage there. You can see the effect of that, just kind of scratching it up a little bit, but you can probably buff that out with this pretty easily, where if you were using an actual file, like say for example here, just your kind of normal metal file, and you did that, you'd be really damaging the part quite a bit there. And I'm doing pretty much the exact same thing that I was just doing with the glass file, and you can see it's doing a lot more damage there. You can see all of that scratches in there that you're gonna have to sand a little bit more to get all that out. But there we go. After using the Razer and the balancer a little bit, it works pretty well. And again, you're seeing a little bit of that little bit of whiteness there, the miscoloration from just removing that nub, but it feels smooth. So again, I think it works pretty well. Finally, let's just test this out here on a clear part and see how this is gonna work. So this clear part is like kind of on the edge of here, so it's not really as much of a concern. Getting rid of the nub on this, it's not like if it was right on the middle of this clear surface, then you would really need to worry about doing any unnecessary damage to that. There, the nub is basically gone, but you can see a little bit of roughness there where you can tell, like from down here where it's not sanded and up here where it is sanded, you can tell a little bit of a difference there. So let's see if we can buff this a little bit with the balancer. We'll do the bottom side first, and you can see that will definitely like kind of fog up the clear part a little bit just with the effect of sanding on it like that. And then we'll go with the upper side as well too, which should give it an even finer buffing, and it should start to look back to just being completely clear like how it looked straight away before we started sanding anything on it. And then with the recovery tool as well here, we'll give it a good rub down with that, and see how this is looking. And it's pretty good. I think I probably could have gone a little bit more with the Razer at first, because I think I didn't get it super duper smooth there everywhere, but the balancer and the recovery tool did work to get the clear plastic looking back to being very clear without seeing any visible sanding on that, so that's good anyway. Alright, so final verdict on the Razer, going back to my 3 main points. Is this going to save you money? As I've heard from a lot of people, you can basically get the same type of glass file for much cheaper online, just getting some generic one or something off Amazon or whatever. So as far as I know, I don't think this is going to save you any money, as this thing is not super cheap. I guess it kind of fails in that category. Second category is it going to save you time? I don't necessarily feel like this is something that you should really pay too much attention to, because you know, it's one of those things that if you want to do it right, some things just take more time. But if you are interested in saving time when building your kits, I feel like it's probably going to take about the same amount of time. I don't know if it's necessarily going to save you a lot of time compared to whatever other technique you're typically using, whether it's sanding sticks or sandpaper or just a knife or kind of whatever you're using for typically removing your nub marks. So then the third category would just be, is it giving you better results? Now, I think it's pretty clear to see that you do get some pretty nice results with this. It depends on what you want to do. If you're not planning on painting, you just want to get a nice clean build of your model kits, plastic model kits, just straight out the box, then I think this set is probably very useful for that. Is it better for other products? I'm not sure. I think it's probably just about equal, so I don't think that it's necessarily better for anything. But it is a nice product. I mean, it's very well packaged, and you have this box which you can reuse as well too. They do seem to be like they're going to hold out pretty well for a while too. And like, for example, if you wore out your balancer, I know you can order the parts separately too, so if you needed a new balancer, you can get a new one of those. Or if your glass file broke or something like that, you accidentally threw it across the room, I think you could get a new one of these. Otherwise, I don't feel like this is gonna break. I mean, it feels pretty hard. I feel like if I just dropped it on the ground, yeah, it seems like it's gonna be fine. It's not gonna be that easily broken, so that's good. And then if you need a new one of these, I mean, just cut out a square of an old pair of jeans or something, I guess, I don't know. So overall verdict on this is it seems like a nice tool to have, not necessarily something that I think is a must-have. It's kind of like it's kind of similar to having a really expensive pair of God hand nippers. They work really well for what you want it to do. Is it really necessary to spend that much more money for a product? It's not really necessary in my opinion, but you know, if you want something that is going to work well and you don't mind spending the money for it, then by all means go for it. Alright, so as for the joint guard system here in light gray, I don't know if it comes in different colors or not, but basically just in light gray, and you have this in different sizes. So it's basically just like sticker paper that's just pre-cut into different sizes that then you can stick on pieces to get a better fit. So let's see, we got 330 pieces of 1.5 by 4 millimeter, 150 pieces of 2mm by 8mm, 264 pieces of 1.5 by 6mm, 80 pieces of 2.5 by 12mm, 150 pieces of 2.5 or 2 by 10mm, and then 80 pieces of 2.5 by 14mm. Okay, so that's what you have on here, and these should just peel off. You're probably going to want to use some tweezers. And I will say the material does feel a little bit more thick than what I was expecting. I was expecting it to be just kind of like some really basic kind of sticker paper, but it does feel a little bit more substantial than that, and we'll have to test how well the stick is, but the top surface, I mean, it does feel like, I'm not sure what the material is, but it doesn't feel like just paper. It does feel like it's a little bit more kind of something a little bit more substantial than that. But here on the back of that, it shows it improves the fixing ability of all joints of plastic models. So just showing how you can stick a piece on a peg like that on the inside of some like C joint there, on some different parts, just to make the fit better. So if you have a part that's kind of loose, you can use these on there. Now the thing that it shows these all, I think these are all like Exia parts. They're probably the perfect grade, it looks like. But if there's one thing that Bandai is particularly known for, it's kits that go together really well without needing any glue or anything like that. So I feel like if you're pretty much just only building a lot of Bandai Gundam models, you're probably not gonna really often need these. Be a really rare case when you would really need to use much of these. And there's a lot of other different techniques that you could use for tightening joints. You can use glue, you can use different types of paint, just regular masking tape or putty, or all sorts of, I've heard people using like just little bits of tissue paper and like stuffing in the joints to get a little bit tighter fit. And so there's a lot of different things that you could use that I feel like this is probably not very useful. This is probably more useful if you're building like other non-Bandai kits. I don't know, it's like Hasegawa or Awashima kits, things like that, that maybe aren't going to have as good a fit, or if you're building a lot of resin kits where you don't really have a perfect fit of those, these are probably more useful for that. But I was checking through what I have on hand here, and I thought this would be a good candidate, and despite, you know, my complaints about this kit here and there, it is actually pretty solid. But I did find one place here where would be a good place to test this, and that is the leg. So you can see that is kind of sinking down there. So if you wanted to keep the leg, if you wanted to keep this in like an aerial pose or something and not have that leg drooping down over time, let's see if we can tighten up this joint a little bit. So we'll just pop off our leg here. Whew. Easier said than done, and it just got the ball joint. So we're going to try basically what it shows in here for the ball joint of basically laying an X pattern of 2 of these across the ball joint. Now I'm not sure exactly which size is going to be best to use. Because it's a little bit larger ball joint, I guess I'll go for one of these a little bit larger ones, a 2mm by 10mm, and we'll lay a couple of these across here and see if that helps the weight issue here we're having with this. I think I might need a little bit longer one though, so I'll do one of those. That looks maybe a little bit too short. For the other one, I'll use 2.5 by 14, which is the largest size. It's a pretty large ball joint we have here, so we'll see. Maybe this is a little bit better. All right, so that's up and giving that the shake, and it's definitely not sinking the way that it was before. I think I'm still seeing a little bit of a sink with that, and I guess I could have used 2 of the larger size, or I could even put another sticker on there, a third one I suppose, and it might help a little bit more. But it's definitely helping for that not to sink down in the same way that it was before. I was shaking it like this, and I'm actually shaking it a little bit harder now than I was before, and it's not really drooping that much. So it does seem to be pretty effective. Like I said, there's a lot of other things that I think you could use instead of these, so I don't know necessarily how important these would be to have in your collection of tools, but just to go back to the 3 points for this, it is going to save you money. Again, like I said, because there's a lot of other techniques that you could use, like just some super glue, or I think probably just regular masking tape or anything. I'm not sure if this is going to be much cheaper than alternative techniques to tighten joints. This is going to save you time, possibly. I guess you don't need to wait for glue to dry or anything. If you just have this on hand, and if you need it, you just pull one off there and just stick it on pretty quick. So I guess it's not going to, cost you any more time than any other technique, I suppose, and it's going to give you better results. I feel like it does work pretty well, so it's kind of like the same exact ruling pretty much as the Razer. It's nice to have, and it works well for what it does. Not really particularly necessary, and there's other ways to do it. So ultimately, I think I'm just going to have to say, at least for these tools, they seem like a little bit gimmicky, not really that particularly useful for most builders, but if it's the kind of thing that you would like to try out, maybe you find it very useful. And I know there's people out there who like to try out all sorts of tools and find uses for them, so if you're that kind of person who just likes to try out new tools and see what you can do with them, then I would say go for it. If you are not really finding yourself in need of this type of tool and not wanting to spend the extra money, then I would say maybe just pass on these. But that's what I'm thinking about these at the moment. I'm not sure what other products they make, and I'll maybe try to look into some more products from Gunprimer in the future and give you guys my thoughts on those. But for now, hopefully this video was helpful or useful for any of you guys who are interested in these products. If you have any other further questions or anything you would like me to clarify or maybe test out more in the future, I can certainly do a follow-up video if you guys would like me to test out something else that I didn't cover in this video. But for now, hopefully that information was helpful for you guys. Thank you so much for your support, liking, commenting, subscribing, all of that's greatly appreciated. And again, thank you to USA Gundam Store, as always, for their support, for sending these to me to try and share with you guys. So you guys all have a great weekend. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.